Jai Hind all the students. Today in this lecture, we are going to discuss about the pay structures and the allowances. So let's start with the definition of pay or salary. Pay or salary is a fixed compensation periodically paid to person for regular work. Pay is a regular payment, usually monthly, made to employees as their contributions to the service of the organization. So whenever we give any service to any particular work organization, so in return, we used to get certain amount that can be called as a pay or a salary. Now, what is called as pay structure? Pay structure may be defined as a kind of a framework for managing the pay. There may be various kinds of the pay structures. When we talk about the pay structures, it shows the pay grades, the levels, or the bands. When we talk about the pay structures, there may be the narrow grade pay structures. They are also called as a multi-graded pay structures. Then there may be the job family structures. There may be broad banded structures, or there may be pay spines. So that we are going to discuss in this lecture today. Now, if we talk about the nature of the pay structure, it may be defined as a collection of the pay grades. Like most of the organizations have the various pay grades, and for the government organizations, there is a specific pay matrix in which all the pay grades are defined properly. Now, organizes and demonstrates organization compensation philosophy also. Like whenever we talk about the pay structures, if it is a narrow graded structure in any organization, so it just reflects the compensation philosophy of that organization. It just reflects that what they believe in, whether they believe in more number of levels or less number of the levels in the organization. Then pay structure again is very much important if you want to retain the HR or the employees in your organization. Then recognizes differences in the individual employee contributions. It is a pay structure that just helps in recognizing the differences in the individual employee contributions. Now, what may be the criteria for the pay structures? Like while if you are responsible to design the pay structures, so there is a criteria to maintain that. First, be appropriate to the culture, characteristics and needs of the organization. Like one should always consider the four important parameters into the mind. There must be equity, fairness, consistency and transparency. Be capable of adapting to pressures arising from the market rate changes. Then facilitate operational flexibility. It should not be very rigid. Whatever you have made, there must be the operational flexibility into that particular pay structure. Then there must be a scope for rewarding the performances of the employees if they have really done something good for the organization. Then there must be like the clarity into the reward systems and the career opportunities. Whatever the pay structure you have maintained, that should be constructed logically and that must be clear. Like there must be transparency so that all the employees should understand what exactly this pay structure is all about. Then enable the organization to exercise control over the implementation of the pay policies and the budgets. So these are the few criteria that one should just always check before working on the pay structures. Now, when we talk about the designs of the pay structures, so we can just have a look here. Like there must be a choice of the structure. As I told you, there may be four kinds of the designs. So it all depends on the organizational philosophy that what kind of the design actually it wants. Now, like if we talk about the broad banded structure, so there are less hierarchy into that. There are very less number of the levels. There are no more seniors and the junior kind of the relationships inside the organization. So there may be the grade structures, there may be the pay structures, but that all depends on the organizational philosophy. And when we talk about the designing of the grade structures, it all depends on the kind of the grade structure that you are going to just apply for your organization. When we talk about the types of the grade structure, the first, as I told you, it is called as a multi-grade structure. A multi-grade structure is also called as a narrow grade structure. It may just be the 10 or more grades and it may go up to 18. So there may be at least like minimum 10 and maximum there may be the 18 levels inside the organization on which there may be the different pay grades. So that's why it is also called as the narrow graded structure. And like whenever the companies used to define the pay grades, it all depends on the job evaluation. whatever the points that have been assigned to a particular designation, accordingly the pay grades are decided for that particular job designation. Now the next important type of the pay structure may be called as a broad banded. It may include 4 or 5 bands. Actually, it compresses the multi-graded structures. So like there may be 4 or 5 bands into it. Like more attention is paid to the market rates whenever we work on the broad banded structures. The organization philosophy is not to just go for the more number of levels among the employees. The main objective is to work in a team and with the creativity. So wherever the organizations which are more into the creative work and which are more into the innovation, so they usually believe in the broad banded kind of the structure. So there are only 4 to 5 bands that may be the part of the broad banded structure. Then the job family, like whenever you join any organization, there are certain families of the job to which you belong. For example, if you belong to any particular company, so there may be the marketing department, finance department, IT department, HR department, all these are the families. So to whichever family you belong, you have to just decide whatever is your designation in that particular family, your pay grade would be accordingly. So job family structure, like whenever the pays are decided according to the family of the job to which a particular employee belongs. So that may be called as a job family structure. Families are not only dependent on the functional or the specialization areas of the employees. The family may also be there inside the organization based on the nature of the jobs. Like there may be the technical jobs, managerial jobs, then there may be administrative jobs. So it may be that kind of the family also that may be the part of that particular organization. So whenever the job families are maintained by the organizations, and then accordingly the pay is decided for the employees, so that may be called as the job family structure. There may be maximum 6 to 8 levels in these kind of the structures. And then the last kind of the structure is called as pay spine. This kind of the structure you will always find in the public sector, and it is more for the government jobs. Like according to pay spine, there must be an increment of 2.5 to 3% in the salary of all the employees. So like it has given like the name is spine, as the spine or the spinal cord works in our body. So same is that case of the pay spine. Like it usually believe into the incremental points of the employees, and they used to just take into consideration like the length of the service of that particular employee. And then accordingly, if the employee is working has completed 1 complete year of service, so he deserves at least 2.5 to 3% increment in his salary. So this is called as the pay spine structure. Then how to construct the pay structures? Like actually it is very important to know about, like if you will join any organization as a HR manager, so maybe there can be a task to just construct the pay structure. So how you can just make that pay structure? So there are certain points that one should consider into it. Step number 1, deciding on the number of the pay structures. First, you have to just go with the organizational philosophy, whether they believe in the broadband or whether they believe in the narrow grade. Then accordingly, you have to keep into consideration the following important points. Like for example, number 1 point is exempt and non-exempt pay structures. While we talk about the exempt jobs, they have been defined under the Fair Labor Standards Act, and they are mostly of the nature of like professional, managerial, executive and supervisory. So in the case of the exempt jobs, if somebody has done any overtime, so there is no provision of overtime pay to these kind of the personals, those who come into the category of the exempt jobs. But if the person belongs to the non-exempt jobs, to which which is defined under FLSA as a non-exempt jobs, like in which the jobs are more of the non-supervisory into the nature. So if somebody has done any kind of the extra hours he has allotted to that particular workplace, or he has done any overtime, so he deserves to have the allowance for the same. So that is a kind of a difference in between the exempt and the non-exempt jobs. So first you have to just go with it. Then the pay structures based on the job family, like it again depends to which kind of the job family you belong. Either you are from the family of executive, managerial, professional, technical, clerical or craft. So accordingly, like the management used to decide the salaries of the people based on their families. Then the pay structures may also be dependent on the geography. Like for example, it is a cost of living that is substantially higher in the northeast region than in the south and the southeast regions of the US. So it all depends that where you are living, what is the geographical location of your workplace. Then, so after considering all these points, one can work as a HR manager on the pay structure. Then second important point that one should consider is determining a market pay line. You have to just check out the market rates, whatever is there into the market rates for the particular designations. So you have to just keep into consideration all that particular points, because if your salary structure is not compatible with the market rates, so it may create the problems. You will not be able to retain the employees for a long period of time. So that's why the second important point is also to be considered by the HR managers while they are maintaining the pay structures. Then the third important point is defining the pay grades. There may be the broad band, there may be the narrow band. So it all depends on the organizational philosophy. Like whatever your management thinks, accordingly you have to take the action. If they believe in more number of levels, so one should go with the narrow grade. If they believe in less number of the junior seniors or less number of the levels, so one should go with the broad band. So that all depends. That all depends what kind of a philosophy your organization usually believe in. Then the next important point is now you have to calculate the pay ranges for each pay grade. While if we talk about the pay ranges and the pay ranges build upon pay grades. Pay grades represent the horizontal dimension of the pay structures, while pay ranges represent the vertical dimensions. So while we talk about the pay rates, there may be two kind of the rates. It may be green circle and it may be red circle. What is green circle actually? Green circle means when the employees are receiving the salary below the minimum pay rates, like they are getting the salary which is not compatible according to the market, they are getting the less of the salary as compared to the competitors organization. So it may be called as green circle. The reason of getting less of the salary may be that they are getting the training from their organization, so to improve their skills on the or experience on that particular job. Then the opposite of it is called as red circle. So when the companies are paying greater than the maximum rates for their pay ranges, so they may be called as the red circle rates. When the employees are already getting more of the salary as like compatible, which is more than the market rates, even than the pay ranges even, so that kind of the rates are called as the red circle pay rates. So like those who are the exemplary employees, they may receive the red circle rates for the exceptional job performance, particularly when a promotion to a higher pay grade is not granted. So they usually get more number of increments into their salary. So they may be called as the people, those who are coming under the red circle pay rates. And at last, evaluating the results. Now you have worked on the whole pay structure. Now the time has come when you should just evaluate the results, like what actually the kind of the pay structure your organization is working. So for that, there is a formula which is called as, like there is a concept which is called as Campa ratios. So you can just calculate the Compa ratios. There is a formula to calculate the Compa ratios. It may be defined as employees pay rate divided by pay range midpoint. Now what this Compa ratio is actually, like Compa ratio defines the compatibility of the pay structure with the market. Like if the Compa ratio is equal to 1 for any organization, so it shows that your organization is paying equally as the rates that are prevailing into the market. So this shows that. But if the Compa ratio is more than 1, so that means your organization is a leader in the payment system and they are paying more salary than the market. If the Compa ratio is less than 1, so it shows that your organization is not paying as much salary as it is as given by the competitors on the same particular designation. So your rates are less than the market. So it all shows like the organization situation whenever we evaluate the results. So the organization should take the proper steps after the evaluation, what they think the best for their organization. Now, the components of the pay structure. So when we talk about the components of the pay structure, the first is called as a basic pay. Basic pay means like the basic salary. It is a fixed amount paid to the employees by their employers in return for the work performed or performance of professional duties by the former. Like it is a fixed component in the salary. You cannot just do anything into it. Like, and then there is a difference in between the basic salary and the gross salary. Gross salary includes all the allowances which are given to the employees apart from their basic. So that may be called as a gross salary. And then there is a concept of net salary also. So whenever the employees used to get the salary after all the statutory deductions like taxes, so that may be called as the net salary. There are certain features of the basic pay. Basic pay is a fixed component in the salary. It may provide the platform for determining additional payments. It may be expressed as annual, weekly, or hourly. It reflects both external compatibility and the internal relativities. Then the level of pay may be based on long-standing structures. Performance skill based or competence related pay increases may be added to or consolidated into the basic rate. So these all are the few features of the basic pay. There may be various additions to the base pay. Like basic is basic. Basic is a kind of a fixed amount that you are going to get from your employer. But apart from the base pay, there are certain additions to it that is given to the employees by the employer. Like it may be the bonus, it may be the incentives that may be added to your salary, it may be commission, it may be service related pay, it may be skill based pay, it may be competence related pay, it may be career development pay, and it may be the various allowances also that should be the part of your salary. So these all are the various components that may be added to the base pay. And whenever you add all that kind of the new things, new components into the base pay, it becomes a gross pay. When we talk about the gross pay may be defined as the amount that is used to calculate that employee wages or salaries for a particular period of time. Like for both salaried and hourly employees, the calculation is based on agreed upon amount for the gross pay. So when we join any organization, so it is usually fixed under the contract in between the employer and the employee, that what would be the gross pay that he is going to get from that particular organization. Now when we talk about the calculation of the gross pay, how we can calculate it, like there may be two ways to calculate the gross pay. It may be hourly gross pay and it may be salaried gross pay. So if somebody is working as a worker, in that case there may be the concept of the hourly gross pay. And how hourly gross pay is calculated: first, the information on the employee hours worked is taken from the timesheet or any other way record of employee time is done. Then regular pay is calculated by multiplying the total number of hours in that pay period with the hourly pay rate. And then it is also checked if the employee has worked for any overtime hours. If the employee has done any overtime, he has worked more than 40 hours in a week, in that case he deserves to have the overtime allowance, and that should be 1.5 times of the regular hourly pay rate. So this is the way that how the salary or the gross pay of the workers may be calculated. Then there may be the salaried gross pay also. It is basically for the managerial, supervisory and executive levels that they used to get the salary for their work. And how it is calculated: first, the employee annual salary is divided by the number of the pay periods in a year. Basically in a year 12 pay periods are calculated, and then any other pay that the employee received is also added, such as any kind of the reimbursement or the bonuses or the incentives that may also be added into the salary of that employee. So this is somehow the salary is usually given to the employees in the organization. So there may be two ways of the payment of the gross pay to the people. It all depends on the nature of the job. Like if somebody is a worker, so they may be having the hourly gross pay. But if somebody is working on the supervisory or managerial or like executive designation, so they may have the salaried gross pay. Now the next is the take home pay. It is the amount that actually is coming to your hand at the end of your pay period or at the end of the month. Like how it may be calculated: like first, determine the gross salary. Gross salary equals to CTC, that is cost to company, minus employer's provident fund contribution minus gratuity. Then determine the taxable income. How you can calculate the taxable income: it equals to gross salary minus employees PF minus conveyance allowance minus HRA, leave travel allowance minus medical bills minus medical insurance, then tax saving investment and other deductions. So you will get the taxable income. Then apply the tax rates. Every year the tax slabs are announced by the government, so one should check the tax slabs. There may be 4% health and education cess also. Then calculate the take home salary. Take home salary is equal to gross salary minus income tax minus employer's provident fund contribution minus professional tax. So with this way, you can have the take home pay. After all the statutory deductions, whatever you are getting in your hand, so that may be called as the take home pay. So it is a simple explanation to the take home pay, what exactly can be called as a take home pay. You all know that there is a provision of the provident fund also in the organization. So there is a contribution from the employer and the employee. So all the kind of the deductions, once it has been done from the gross pay, so whatever rest comes into your hand, that may be called as take home pay. There may be the other components of the pay structures also, like it may be called as allowances. Like allowances may be defined as a payment given to an employee by an employer in monetary terms. Allowances may be fully taxable, partially taxable, and fully exempt. And then there may be the employee benefits also, like lot of the benefits are given by the employer to the employee, like healthcare benefits, retirement benefits. Then there may be bonus also. The word bonus refers to an extra pay due to the good performance. So sometimes organizations used to give or announce the bonus also to the employees, and there may be incentives also. Incentive again is a very important component of the pay structure. It is given in addition to the regular wages. Now, factors that may affect the pay structures. Number one is the corporate culture and the values. Like if your organization always looks for the best and the brightest employees, so they will always pay the high of the salary to the talented people. So it all depends on the kind of the philosophy, on the kind of the corporate culture and the values. Like the second management philosophy, I have defined it a lot of times. It all depends whether your organization believes in the narrow pay ranges or the wider ranges. Then the third factor is called as the external economic environment. Like if there is more of the demand for the engineers into the market, and engineers are not so much, like they are not available in the market, so obviously the salary would go high for the engineering job, and vice versa. So it all depends on the what kind of the economic environment is prevailing in that particular time period. Then there may be external social, political, and legal environments also. It all depends that which government is into the rule, what is the political scenario there, what are the laws there. So the pay structures may all be dependent on all these kind of the issues. Like they must be according to the legal laws, and they should always consider all that political decisions, and they must be according to the customs that are prevalent into that particular country. So these all are the factors that may affect the pay structures. Then there may be the centralized compensation policy. There are the organizations in the market, those who always want to be the head of the market in the payment of the salary to the employees. So it all depends. So your organization may be the firm believer of the centralized compensation policy. So they may always hire the employees at the higher rates that are at par or more than the market rates. Then the next factor is called as the decentralized compensation policy. In few organizations, they used to give the importance to few departments. Like in most of the organizations, if it is a manufacturing hub, they used to give the importance to the production department, and then they can give the importance to the marketing department also. So for that departments, they have the high salary pay structures, but for the other departments or the rest of the departments, they are not so good into the payment system. So it may be called as the decentralized compensation policy of the organization. Then there may be short term orientation and the long term orientation. A company with the long term orientation is most likely to have a well designed pay structures with career path capabilities. But in case of short term or temporary orientation, the organizations doesn't they are not so much concerned about the pay structures, and they always believe into the temporary solutions. So it all depends on the orientation of the organization also, whether they have the short term orientation or the long term orientation. Now the allowances may be defined as a fixed quantity of money that is given to the employees for their apart from their basic pay. Like when we talk about the allowances, dearness allowance is the first important allowance. It is also called as mehengai bhatta. Like when we talk about the dearness allowance, it is a cost of living adjustment allowance. You know that there is an inflation in the market. There is always it always depends on the purchasing power of the employees, that what kind of a standard of living they have. So keeping into consideration the market situations and the inflation into the market, like the government usually announce the dearness allowance for the government employees, and it is usually revised twice in a year. And the dearness allowance is the second important part of the compensation structure after the basic pay. It takes care of the price inflation. It is regular and continuing part of the compensation package for most of the employees. Then the next important allowance is called as the HRA, house rent allowance. It is a salary component paid by the employer to the employees for meeting the accommodation expense of renting a place for residential purposes. So if somebody is living in a rented house, so he should have some kind of the allowance for that also. So that kind of a allowance is called as the house rent allowance. And there is a exemption for tax also that is given to the employees if they are receiving the HRA from their company. And here you can see one of the numerical in which we have tried to solve the HRA. Like if you want to just, if you are receiving some HRA, so the whole HRA is not taxable into your salary. There is certain amount that would be exempted from the tax. So how you can just go for that exemption? So there are the rules for that. So if somebody is living in a metro city, like if somebody is living into the metro city, then for him like 50% of a salary in a case of a metro city, oblique 40% in the case of the non-metro cities. Then the second is excess of rent paid over 10% of salary, and third is HRA received. So whatever amount is less among all these three, so that amount would be exempted from tax from the whole HRA what the employee has received for that year. Okay, so this is somehow how we can calculate the HRA. You can have a look on the numerical also that is given below. Then the next is the overtime allowance. If somebody is doing the overtime in the organization, so he deserves to have the overtime allowance. Like overtime allowance rules are given under two heads. It is the departmental rule and the Factories Act. Like when we talk about the factories, like overtime allowance, if somebody has worked beyond normal working hours and up to 9 hours a day, or beyond 44 hours or up to 48 hours in a week, so he deserves to have a overtime as per the departmental rule, which is also known as DOT. Then there may be the overtime payment under the Factories Act also. Factories Act has certain provisions in terms of the overtime allowance. It says that where a worker works in a factory for more than 9 hours in any day or for more than 48 hours in any week, he shall in respect of overtime work be entitled to wages at the rate of twice his ordinary rate of wages. So whatever the extra hours he has given to that organization, for all that extra hours he should be paid twice the amount according to the, which should be calculated as according to the ordinary rate of the wages. So this is somehow the kind of the allowance which is given for the overtime which is done by the like workers in the organization. Then there may be CCA. It is called a city compensatory allowance. It is a type of allowance which is offered by the companies to the employees to compensate for the high cost of living in the metropolises or the large cities. So there may be tier 1 cities and there may be tier 2 cities. So because like it is expensive to live there, so sometimes the employees used to get the CCA for that reason also. Tier 1 cities are categorized, and then there is a second category that is a tier 2 city. So CCA may be dependent on the cities, whether it is coming into tier 1 or tier 2. So it is also a kind of an allowance which is fully taxable. There is no kind of a relaxation that is given to the employees. One more important thing, whatever is your designation, CCA would be equal. If you are a manager, CCA would be there. If you are a clerk, again CCA would be the same. So CCA is always the same in the case of the employees. And then the conveyance allowance, like if the organization is not giving any traveling facility to the employees, so sometimes they used to give the conveyance allowance to their employees. Like it is a kind of an expense which the employee has borne, like to come to the workplace. So that kind of an allowance is again a kind of an amount which is added to the salary, to the basic of the employees. Then there may be the travel allowance also. Like if somebody has gone to work for the office, or if he is on the official duty and if he travels for the work, so he used to get the travel allowance. This travel allowance includes the accommodation, food, drink, and incidentals whatever he has incurred during the journey. And then the employee is eligible for traveling allowance if the journeys are undertaken for the following purposes: he is on the tour and he is on the official duty on behalf of his office, he has to do certain activity, or he has to just participate in certain important meeting or the event. Then appearing in the departmental examination, interview or selection test, recall from leave, participation in training program, seminar or conference, appearing in court hearing of the company, then receiving the national awards on behalf of the company, employees of the company appearing as accused in department vigilance inquiry, then transfer, then medical examination other than for a purpose of appointment in the company or treatment, superannuation, retirement, journey of family, appearing for interview, journey to join duty on first appointment in the company. So all these are the various allowances that comes into the traveling allowance. Then there is new change into it, the 7th pay commission traveling allowance. There are few revisions that has been done in the traveling allowance. 7th pay commission traveling allowance revision effected by government has many good news for the central government employees. Until now, under 6th CPC, traveling allowance entitlement allowed only employees in the grade pay of rupees 5,400 and above. But now this amount has been changed. Now, on implementation of the 7th CPC, traveling allowance with effect from 1st July 2017, the central government employees who are in the pay level of 6 and above, that is equivalent to grade pay of rupees 4,200 and above, are entitled to travel by air. So these are the few changes that has been announced by the government through the 7th pay commission. Now also the central government employees in pay level 5 and below will be entitled to travel by first class, AC third, AC chair car by train. Reimbursement for staying expenses, food expenses and local travel expenses have also been increased, substantially taken into account the prevailing rates. So this is a change which is given to the employees according to the 7th pay commission. There may be the other allowances also. It may be fixed medical allowance, cost of living allowance, servant allowance, non-practicing allowance, tiffin allowance, deputation allowance. Then there may be the allowances like allowance to meet SSC's expenses incurred in performance of duties. Then allowance for travel or tour on transfer. There may be daily allowance, conveyance allowance, helper allowance. If somebody is going for higher studies, there may be the academic allowance. There may be the uniform allowance. Then there may be the allowances to meet personal expenses of the SSCs also. Like some company used to give the children education allowance. They used to give the hostel allowance also to the employees. There may be the special compensatory allowance. Then there may be the allowance to like transport employees. If somebody is working in the tribal area, so there may be an extra allowance that should be given to the employees according to the Indian government. Then there may be the special compensatory area allowance. Like if somebody is working on the border area, or if they are working in the remote area. So if somebody is working in the areas, first kind of the areas, then there may be the allowance which is 1,300 per month extra. Then in second kind of the category, it is 1,100, then so on. Then there may be the compensatory field area allowance also, like any compensatory field area allowance given in the field areas of Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur and Nagaland, Sikkim, Himachal Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, and some such areas of Jammu and Kashmir is exempt from tax up to rupees 2,600 per month. Then there may be compensatory modified field area allowance, and then there may be counter insurgency allowance. Any special allowance which is called as the counter insurgency allowance granted to the members of armed forces operating in areas away from their permanent locations for a period of more than 30 days, and it is exempted at the rate of rupees 3,900 per month. So this is somehow the various kinds of the additions that is given to the base pay for all the employees. There may be the transport allowance to the blind or the handicapped people. There may be the people who are working in the mines, and also for them there may be the underground allowance. Then there may be high altitude allowance. Those who belong to the armed forces or are working in the high altitude areas, so they must have an extra payment in terms of allowance, so that is called as a high altitude allowance. Then there may be highly active field area allowance. Then there may be island duty allowance. If somebody belongs to the armed forces and is working on the island like Andaman and Nicobar or Lakshadweep group, so they must have some extra sort of an allowance, and that is called as an island duty allowance. It is exempted from tax up to rupees 3,250 per month. So all these are the various kinds of the benefits which are given to the employees apart from their salary. So this is all about this lecture. I hope that we have served the purpose of this lecture and you got to know about a lot of the new things. Thank you.